Rory Greener from XR Today, bringing you the latest in news and conversation from the extended reality space. Today we are joined by Nils Pihl, the CEO of Auki Labs, a firm providing patent-pending instant collaboration methods for AR developers. Thank you so much for joining me.
Pleasure being here.
Wonderful. So to start us off, can you give us a brief introduction to Auki Labs, as well as your methods of accurately and securely tracking a device and exploring the need for this type of technology solution?
Absolutely. So we got started in a sense back in 2019. But back in 2019, we were doing something quite different. We had the ambition to create an augmented reality measuring tool for the tabletop game Warhammer. And we really wanted this to be a shared experience where when I make a measurement, you can see it on your device as well. But we learned very quickly that it's very hard for AR experiences to be shared because the devices that we use to have AR experiences, be they phones or glasses, have a very poor understanding of where they are. We're very used to using things like GPS that might tell us what street corner we're on, but it certainly doesn't know where in the room I am or if my phone is in my right hand or in my left hand. So to position devices, we found that, well, what developers do today is that they do visual positioning, where one phone will scan the entire environment or enough of the environment to provide a kind of spatial anchor and then upload that into the cloud and allow another device to download this information off the cloud and also scan around, and then you compare these scans. And there are a couple of things that are quite bad with that approach. One is it takes a lot of time. It takes time to scan it. It requires a lot of data to scan it. Requires a lot of data to download it. It takes a lot of time to scan off it. But also, very unfortunately, there's a huge privacy concern here because positioning is happening by me recording potentially quite sensitive information. You know, if we're doing something in shared AR in our home, in our bathroom, in our bedroom, that might not be information that we want Google or Facebook or Niantic to have. And this drove us to invent what we call the instant calibration technique that allows two devices to position themselves relative to each other rather than relative to the environment. So when we position the two devices, they start reasoning about the world relative to each other rather than relative to the environment, and no data about the environment is being exchanged by default, and no data about the environment passes through our servers. So we have no idea where the session is happening, and that's okay. And we think the benefits of that are, well, plenty. For one, we preserve your privacy, but also calibration is a lot faster because we don't have to scan the environment. And it turns out that it's also more accurate because it's easier to understand the relationship between the two devices than the relationship between the device and the environment.
Fantastic, thank you so much for that. So could we dive a little bit deeper? Could you introduce us to and give us a little bit more background into Conjurekit and what that means for AR developers?
So the Conjurekit is the SDK that we've developed to make this functionality of instant calibration and real-time networking be available to other developers. When we had built this and realized, wow, this is a total game changer, it allows us to hop in and have very spontaneous shared experiences, we figured this is something that a lot of AR developers would want. In fact, Rory, I would argue that this is maybe why AR didn't take off to begin with. Most of the things that we want to do in the world, we want to do with other people. And the most powerful thing that you can do in augmented reality is put information where it belongs. And that makes it a very powerful communication tool if you can have it shared. So we thought, forget about the Warhammer app. Here's what we need to do. We need to make an SDK to allow other developers to make use of this feature. And that's what the Conjurekit is. So the Conjurekit is today in public beta. It's available for Unity on iOS, and it's coming out for Unity on Android very, very soon. And it allows you to use this instant calibration technique. And it also allows you to use the bespoke real-time messaging service that we built for the devices to be able to communicate about their position.
Great, and you mentioned it a couple of times already, but I'd love to learn a little bit more about instant calibration and what that means for an AR developer adopting that SDK.
What the instant calibration means for an AR developer is that instead of having your end users scan around in the environment and make other users do that as well, you can just have your users scan a QR code on the display of one of the users that are already in the session. By comparison, if we wanted to have a shared AR experience in Pokemon Go, for example, the most famous AR experience of all, if we wanted to do a shared experience there, what I would have to do is I would scan a QR code on your screen. So that step is the same. But then there would be an instruction to tell us to stand next to each other, shoulder to shoulder, and we would press next. And then it would tell us to point our cameras towards an object in the distance, and then we press next. And then it would tell us to slowly circle that object together. And this whole process, typically takes somewhere between 20 to 60 seconds, depending on how modern your device is. And everyone has to do this at the same time. So if you and I do this, and then my girlfriend wants to join us, we'd have to start over. And what instant calibration does is it allows us to have hop on, hop off. I can be doing something in AR already. You want to join, you just scan my QR code, you're in. You leave, that's no problem. Or if Karen, my girlfriend, wants to join, she doesn't have to scan my QR code even. She could scan yours. And this makes it a lot more spontaneous to hop on or hop off an AR experience. And it really just allows for more. I've said the word spontaneous a lot here, but I think that really is the word that captures it. It allows you to have a spontaneous experience in AR instead of, putting a minute aside just to do the calibration.
Fantastic. It feels like seamless as well is a brilliant word to describe what these technologies can do that you're offering. Could we also perhaps discuss the benefits of integrating SLAM technology?
So SLAM is how the device reasons about its self-relative position. SLAM is certainly not our invention. In fact, we don't even do our own SLAM as part of Conjurekit. Conjurekit lies on top of the SLAM and allows the devices to collaboratively reason about the data coming from the SLAM. So what SLAM does on the device is it helps the device reason about how it's been moving in time, in space, during that particular session. The problem with SLAM is that the coordinate system that's created in every session is unintelligible to another device. It's kind of like if I gave you my position on a map, but you didn't know where any of the reference points are on the map. It doesn't help you if I tell you I've moved 2 meters to the left. You still don't know where I am. And SLAM coordinate systems have that same issue, which is why you have to go through a calibration process. So SLAM is how devices, be it iOS or Android, are able to do AR at all. And the Conjurekit essentially allows two devices to synchronize their SLAM coordinate systems so that they can be in the same coordinate system and share information about where things are in the world.
Fantastic. It's a very vital piece of technology, I think, so it's really good to hear more about it from people like yourself. But finally, I wanted to ask, how is Auki Labs approaching user privacy and safety? And you've brought this up a few times already, so I'd like to also know, why is it a focus for the company?
I think one thing that we should all stop and think about a little bit is, if augmented reality works by looking at the world, by having a camera and SLAM, then it means that if we believe, like we do, that within 20 years or so, augmented reality will have replaced almost all digital displays in the world, then there could be a company somewhere that is collecting all the visual data of what we're looking at. And this, in fact, Rory, is the default outcome of where the world is headed right now. The way that you do positioning with something like Niantic or with Google Spatial Anchors is that you literally share information about what it is you're looking at with these companies so that they can answer, where are you? So in a world where we're all wearing AR glasses, if the visual positioning paradigm becomes the dominant paradigm, which today it is, and we're hoping that will change. But as long as that's the dominant paradigm, then these companies will literally know what you're looking at. And I don't think I have to describe to you just how Black Mirror-esque such a future could be. And if you combine this with things like foveated rendering, which means that they're looking at where your eye is in the scene, like what are you actually looking at? So the benefit for you is that they can do foveated rendering. They can increase the rendering quality only where you are looking, but they also know where are you looking. So they can find out if you're paying attention. They can find out if your pupils are dilated. They can find out if you still find your wife attractive. These are things that these companies will know if we don't find a way to position these AR glasses without sending the visual information to these companies.
I think that's incredibly well said, and I think, a lot of this technology is incredibly exciting, and there's a lot of prosperity that can come from it. But it's very nice to hear privacy and user safety concerns from companies so invested in the technology as well. So it's very good to hear. Thank you. Very great. So for those watching, sorry, please go ahead.
I just wanted to say that one of the unfortunate situations that we find ourselves in kind of as a civilization is the Web 1 and Web 2 era, but especially the Web 2 era has been very focused on business models that revolve around owning data. And it's that business model of owning data that makes the future of augmented reality so dangerous, because the companies, apart from Auki Labs, that are building technologies for augmented reality are all companies that today make their money off of data. So Auki Labs made a very firm stance that our business model does not revolve around data. The bet we are taking is that people will be willing to pay for positioning rather than be positioned by sharing with Google what you're looking at.
Again, that's brilliant, and to hear those concerns, I think, is very inviting for many. But for those watching, I don't want to keep you any longer. I want you to enjoy Hong Kong a bit more. So for those watching, what's the best way for people to keep in touch and keep up to date with Auki Labs?
If you want to start developing on the Conjurekit, you can go to conjurekit.ar today and just read our documentation, download the SDK, and start hacking away. It's completely free to use today. And you can also visit discord.gg/Aukiverse to speak directly to us and our developer relations team to help you get started. If you want to learn more about us as a company and why we're building these things and why we think it matters, just go to aukilabs.com and you'll be able to find how we reason about the world there in our white paper.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me today, Nils.
Thank you so much for having me, Rory. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. That's it from myself. Get more XR news by subscribing to the XR Today news channel and by following our social pages. I'm Rory Greener from XR Today. Thank you very much for watching.